So, good evening, Miss Robyn Smith.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I found out that you're doing many different things and you're working with many different organizations. Would you like to tell me a little bit about you and your work? Yeah?
In Australia?
Yes.
So I work for an organisation called Sport Inclusion Australia. I'm the Chief Executive Officer. I've been doing that for 27 years. So the prime thing that I do is work with mainstream sport in Australia to get them to develop programs for people with an impairment, and primarily an intellectual impairment, so that when a person with an impairment goes to a club for the very first time, the club's developing skills and resources to be able to include that person. And then ultimately, when they get very good, we develop pathways so that they can compete at local, state, national level. And I've been doing that, as I said, for a very long time. In 2011, I was voted onto the INAS governing board, and that's the International Federation for Athletes with Intellectual Impairments. And we provide, I think it's 15 international sports at top level for elite athletes from around the world. We have 75 countries, and those countries compete in a range of different activities. And obviously culminating in what we call the pinnacle every 4 years, the Global Games. Yeah. I've actually attended all of the Global Games. Australia's been a member of INAS since the very founding year in 1985. I've attended all the Global Games events, and so we decided in 2014 that we would actually bid for the Global Games, and we were successful. And I'm also the Chief Executive Officer of the local organising committee in Brisbane for the Global Games next year in October.
That's really brilliant. You've done so much. And since we are talking about sports, I would like to know first that how do you think sports is changing these intellectually impaired athletes or people with intellectual impairments, their life? What is the role of sports in their life?
From my experience, they often don't achieve very much at school.
Yeah.
Many of them are bullied and ostracised in their school life and in their young life, and they need to find something where they feel comfortable and they fit. And I think sport is the perfect medium for that. So we've found that once a human being feels successful, they're able to join the community in a really positive way. And for the cohort that I represent and believe in, sport gives them that opportunity to be seen as a regular human being like everyone else. And what's happened is they've actually achieved so much in sport and achieved such a high level that many people in the community say, wow, this is amazing, and that increases their confidence, and they join clubs, they join associations, they partake like anybody else, and social inclusion becomes achieved in a very successful way through sport.
Yeah, and do you think our elite athletes from INAS, are they setting an example for the other people with intellectual impairment?
I think so.
Yeah.
They're inspirational, and many of them have not only won or achieved high standards within their sport, but many of them have gone on to gain full-time employment and get involved in the coaching side of things. So they're using their success in sport to actually feed into other parts of their life.
Yeah, all right. No, it's okay. Yeah. And when you spoke about bullying, what kind of bullies and how do you think, these affects them personally or their family members or in the society?
It is. It's something where, unfortunately, humanity, people feel that they have to put people down. Some of these athletes are slow learners in school, and they find their schoolwork a little bit more difficult. Yeah. So and people that don't can often not include them and make them feel bad about themselves. So their self-esteem's low, and they don't have confidence. They stop talking and communicating. They often don't go out and get involved in social activities. So it becomes really isolating for them. Whereas sport provides them that medium where they can go, excel like everybody else, and it's been proven, and then they can join society in a really meaningful way.
Yeah, all right. And do you feel one of the reasons for these bullies could be the confusion between the concept of mental illness and intellectual impairment in the society? Could this be one of the reasons?
I'm not sure that the people bullying understand why they're bullying. Sometimes it's about race, sometimes it's about
Yeah.
religion, sometimes it's about ability.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be anywhere, as far as I'm
Yes.
concerned. But I think they just don't, they're different, they're slightly different. So
Yeah.
instead of opening their arms and being welcoming and helping them,
Yeah.
they tease them. And it can be the worst thing that anybody that's ever been teased, and we all have,
Yeah.
it doesn't make you feel very good at all.
Yeah, all right. And since you are now hosting the Global Games next year in Australia, how do you feel it will impact the intellectually impaired people community in Australia?
Yes. So the Global Games for us,
Yeah.
we're running an event in 9 sports, and it's just an international sporting event. It doesn't matter who are the participants.
Yeah.
We still have to have the same referees, the same court hire, the same transport, accommodation,
Yeah.
all of those same things that an international sporting event has to have. But for me, it's the legacy. It's being able to showcase the athletes to the rest of Australia and the rest of the world, and show people just how good they are.
Yeah.
Once you see the event, then you understand that what I say in Australia, you get it. You understand
Yes.
that it's just all about sport. So I want the legacy to be that people see the success and we
Yeah.
celebrate excellence,
Yeah.
and we celebrate how sport can make a difference in a person's life.
Yeah. And then when you speak about legacy, do you feel hosting the Global Games or the World Championship in different countries every year, or every once in a while, will leave a legacy in those countries? Like, for example, if I talk about India or any other South Asian country, would you feel the legacy will be left behind and the participation will increase there?
Always. People need to see what we're promoting. Once they meet the athletes, once they see them performing, once they see the difference in their lives that they can make, then it will just it's a domino effect. It will just keep growing and increasing. So I think any country that hosts a world event, a global games, even a regional event,
Yeah.
will understand the impact it will have, because the rest of the world sees the ability, and then it's much easier for the participation to increase.
Yeah, and I'm from India, so I would like to ask you specific questions from India. So, have India ever bid for any of the events so far?
I believe India's bid for the Global Games in 2023,
Okay.
which is very positive.
Yeah.
I don't think India's had any other events in my time, but we have had Indian athletes in our Global Games, so that's positive. Not huge numbers.
Yeah.
And from my perspective as the Vice President of INAS, it's really important that the population is represented. And so 6 athletes from India
Yeah.
is not representative of the huge population in India. So I'm very keen, as I said, as Vice President, to ensure that all of the world with an intellectual impairment have an opportunity to be the best that they can be in our INAS pathways.
Yeah, and now since one of our member from INAS, he is doing good job in India. But do you want to give us any advice as a vice president, or from your experience so far, to how to increase it, or how to get down and get the work done?
Yes, I think India probably needs to seek some advice from elsewhere. We have had some visits to Australia.
Yeah.
We're more than welcome to host any of our Indian friends and colleagues to see what we're doing and how we're organising it, and I think it's gaining that experience.
Yeah.
We've met with many people in Australia about the Indian team coming and trying to work out ways and means of helping the Indian contingent come to Brisbane in 2019. That will certainly be the inspiration for people going forward, and more participation in India. But I think it's reaching out and gaining as much information as possible,
Yeah.
and then going back to government in India to say this is really important. They say that between 2 to 3% of the world's population have an intellectual impairment. So when you multiply 2 to 3% by the Indian population, you're talking about 30 million to 45 million people in India have an intellectual impairment and need to be able to access sport and sporting pathways.
Yeah. Would you like to say anything to the Indian government in regard with this?
I'd like to see people supported.
Yeah.
We're already an established organisation. We're happy to help,
Yeah.
and it would be great to see the Indian community represented fairly across all of the sports.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much speaking to me.